Hello there and welcome back. Tonight we're going to sink slowly into the strange feeling of Subnautica 2 and why its ocean can feel so beautiful and so terrifying at the same time. Not in a loud way, not in the way a horror game jumps out from a hallway and tells the body to panic. Subnautica has always been quieter than that. It lets the water hold still for a moment. It lets the reef glow. It lets a small fish turn in the blue like a scrap of living glass. Then, without changing the music too much, it reminds you that the floor drops away. The light fades. The air in the tank is temporary. Something large may be moving beyond the edge of vision. And that is the magic of it. The fear is not separate from the beauty. The fear is inside the beauty, folded into the colour, the silence, the open space, and the soft pressure of an alien sea. Subnautica 2 entered early access on May 14th, 2026, so the calmest way to talk about it is to treat it as a living ocean rather than a sealed final object. Unknown Worlds has been clear that more biomes, creatures, tools, craftables, vehicles, features, and story chapters are planned as early access continues. That does not make the current version less interesting. In some ways it makes the feeling sharper. The ocean is already there, but it is also unfinished in the way real exploration always feels unfinished. There are known shallows, known wreckage, known threats, and known systems. Then there are gaps, places still waiting. Rooms that seem to promise more. Questions that have not fully opened yet. A finished world can feel like a book placed neatly on a shelf. An early access ocean feels like a tide chart with blank spaces, and blank spaces are where the imagination starts doing its own dangerous work. The official setup is simple enough to understand, but it carries a lot of unease. Subnautica 2 takes place on an all-new alien ocean world. You arrive as part of a larger human project tied to the colony ship Cicada and the promise of a new life after conflict has pushed people away from home. Alterra, as usual, is somewhere in the background of that promise, offering survival with one hand and corporate purpose with the other. Then, something goes wrong. The ship's AI still wants the mission to continue. The water is not welcoming in the human sense. It is alive, complex, indifferent, and full of systems that were not waiting for anyone. Right away, the beauty has a pressure behind it. This is not a vacation into blue water. It is an attempted future dropped into a place that may have no interest in becoming home. That difference is a huge part of the terror. In the first Subnautica, the crash of the Aurora made survival personal and immediate. In Below Zero, the return to 4546b had grief, investigation, cold weather, and the lingering presence of the architects. Subnautica 2 begins with another kind of vulnerability, the vulnerability of settlement. A single survivor can dream of escape. A pioneer tied to a colony mission has to think about permanence. And permanence is frightening under the ocean. A base is shelter, but it is also a claim. A wall placed against the water says, for a little while, this space is ours. The sea answers by staying outside the glass, patient and enormous. That tension makes even a safe room feel temporary. The base may have power, storage, air and light, but every window admits the same truth. The world around it is older than the plan. The beauty begins before danger arrives. The ocean catches the eye first. Subnautica 2, built in Unreal Engine 5, has a different visual weight from the original games. The light feels thicker. Surfaces catch colour differently. The water can make a plain rock face feel like something with a pulse. Reefs, plants, floating particles, creature silhouettes and distant forms do not need to explain themselves immediately. They are allowed to be seen before they are understood. That patience is important. If everything in the sea announced its purpose at once, it would become a catalogue. Instead, the world often looks at you without speaking. A plant may be useful, poisonous, harmless, or part of a larger biological chain. A creature may ignore you, follow you, bump a vehicle, or turn hostile. Beauty arrives first as ignorance. You do not yet know what anything means, so everything shines a little brighter. The terror begins in the same place, because not knowing what something means is also the root of fear. A reef full of colour is peaceful until one sound is too deep. A cave entrance is inviting until the ceiling closes over the route back. A harmless creature is charming until a predator moves through the group and suddenly the smaller life scatters. Subnautica does not need to cover the screen with darkness to frighten the body. It only needs to make the world readable enough to tempt exploration, then unreadable enough to make turning back feel wise. The mind starts measuring distance. How far is the base? How much oxygen is left? Is there a way through that opening? Did that sound come from nearby or from somewhere below? These questions are ordinary, almost practical, but together they become a kind of slow dread. Oxygen is the oldest Subnautica fear, and it still works because it is so honest. Many survival games make hunger, thirst, cold, and health into numbers. Subnautica makes breath into time. A tank does not simply measure a resource. It measures how long courage can last before the body must admit it has limits. This is why even a beautiful cave can feel tense. You may love the colour of the walls, you may see a resource you need, or a strange plant that begs to be scanned. But the air is counting down. The ocean does not have to attack you. It can simply refuse to breathe for you. That is a clean, almost elegant kind of horror. It is not cruelty, it is physics. Subnautica 2 adds new systems around adaptation, especially through biomods. On paper, biomods sound like upgrades. Dash, oxygen control, pathfinder, sea skimmer and later options tied to scanning alien life all give the body new ways to move, survive, hide or understand the water. But emotionally, they do something stranger. They make survival feel biological. The body is no longer only wearing better equipment, it is changing. That is beautiful because it suggests a deep relationship with the ecosystem. You study life, learn from it, and borrow something from the planet. It is frightening because adaptation always asks a question. If the ocean changes you enough, how much of your safety is still human? And how much comes from becoming a little more like the world that might kill you? The biomod system also deepens the fear of observation. In earlier Subnautica, scanning was already a quiet act of attention. You pointed the scanner at a creature, waited, and hoped the creature tolerated your curiosity. In Subnautica 2, scanning can become more directly tied to bodily advantage. A creature can now be information and opportunity at the same time. It may hold the clue to a new ability. That makes the moment of approach feel different. You are close enough to learn, which often means close enough to be hurt. The ocean offers knowledge through proximity. It rarely hands over power from a distance. To adapt, you have to get near the thing that does not owe you patience. The tadpole submersible shows the same mixture of comfort and risk. A vehicle in Subnautica has always been more than transportation. It is a little room of moving safety, a shell with lights, depth limits, storage, power, and the promise that the ocean can be crossed without being fully touched. The tadpole carries that feeling into Subnautica 2. It lets distance open. It lets deeper routes seem possible. It turns the sea from a place you can barely survive into a place you can travel. But every vehicle also creates a new fear. What if it is damaged? stranded, grabbed, or left outside in the dark. A vehicle expands freedom, then quietly becomes something else to lose. Unknown Worlds has already been adjusting creature behaviour through hotfixes, and that tells us something important about what Subnautica fear has to be. Fear in this series works best when it feels readable. A predator should not feel like a random punishment machine. It should feel alive, dangerous, and avoidable if enough attention is paid. The studio's community letter after launch admitted that some predator encounters were feeling more frustrating than tense, and that mitigation tools needed to feel clearer and more satisfying. That is a very useful admission. Subnautica terror depends on trust. If the sea is unfair, fear becomes irritation. If the sea has rules, even harsh rules, fear becomes fascination. The hammerhead adjustments are a good example. Early hotfix notes mention changes to hammerhead behaviour, including reducing attraction to tadpole lights and stopping hammerheads from attacking unpiloted tadpoles, while still allowing them to take interest in the vehicle. That sounds like a small balance note, but it carries the whole emotional philosophy of the series. A creature should feel like it has attention. It should notice light, movement, noise, or proximity. But if it follows too far, camps a base, or attacks things in a way that feels silly instead of scary, the spell weakens. The perfect creature is not one that kills most often. It is one that makes you respect the water before it ever touches you. The nibbler changes point in the same direction. Hotfix notes describe reducing perception range, slowing movement, changing attack spacing, and adjusting damage. That kind of tuning sounds technical, but the emotional target is very specific. Small predators need rhythm. If they are too weak, they become background clutter. If they are too relentless, they become noise. Somewhere between those extremes is a creature that makes the shallows feel alive without ruining the calm. A small bite in Subnautica should do more than lower health. It should remind you that the friendly-looking water is still a place with teeth. The marrow breach changes, with increased damage but less frequent attacks. Show another useful idea: danger can become scarier when it does not happen constantly. A creature that attacks without pause can become exhausting. A creature that waits, hits hard, then leaves space around the next strike gives the mind time to imagine the next mistake. The pause matters. Subnautica often frightens through delay. The sound comes first. The shadow follows. The attack may never happen, or it may happen when you have convinced yourself it will not. The sea uses timing the way a good story uses silence. The Collector Leviathan is one of the clearest symbols of the sequel's horror direction. Development coverage has described it as a major new Leviathan, a creature with tentacles, aggressive behaviour, and readable mood cues. Its design is meant to stand apart from earlier Leviathans, rather than simply repeat the Reaper or the Shadow Leviathan in a new skin. That is important because Subnautica's large creatures carry memory. Anyone who has heard a Reaper roar in the old game brings that fear forward. Subnautica 2 has to respect that memory, while making new fear feel new. Size alone is not enough for a Leviathan. It has to make the water around it feel morally different, as if entering its territory was a decision the ocean noticed. Leviathans work because they are more than enemies. They are geography with intention. When a huge creature patrols a region, the region changes in the mind. A plain becomes a hunting ground. A trench becomes a border. A route becomes a gamble. The creature may not be visible every second, but its possibility rearranges the space. This is why Subnautica terror lingers after the encounter ends. You remember the body of the creature and the shape of the water where it could appear. Later, even in safer places, that shape follows you. Scale is one of Subnautica's oldest tricks, and it still has power because human senses are bad at ocean scale. On land, distance is easier to judge. A hill, a tree, a doorway, a road, a roofline all help the mind measure itself. Underwater, scale slips. A creature looks small until it passes near the glass. A cave looks close until swimming there takes too long. A dark shape may be a rock, a wreck, a plant, or something moving slowly because it is very large. Subnautica 2 inherits that unstable scale and builds fear from it. The sea keeps asking the same question without words. Are you sure you know how big this is? Beauty uses scale too. A large arch of stone can feel sacred. A drifting plant field can feel like weather. A deep trench can look like the mouth of a different world. The same scale that makes a leviathan terrifying makes a reef calming. Small human movement against a huge alien background creates awe. Awe is not simple happiness. It has fear inside it. The mind recognizes something larger than itself and does not know whether to bow, flee, or keep looking. Subnautica 2 feels beautiful when it gives that awe room to breathe. The new planet matters because it breaks familiarity. 4546b became strange and beloved over time. The safe shallows, kelp forest, grassy plateaus, mushroom forest, lost river, lava zones, and below zero's frozen regions all built a map in the memory. Subnautica 2 removes that memory as a reliable guide. The old habits remain, but the places do not. That is a rare kind of sequel fear. It does not throw away the language of the series. It lets you remember the language, then speaks with a new accent. You know oxygen matters. You know scanning matters. You know a base means relief. But the fish, the terrain, the routes, the depth limits, the sounds and the bigger mysteries have to be learned again. Learning again is beautiful when the world rewards attention. A small cave near the starting area can feel important because it teaches stone colour, resource placement, creature behaviour and escape routes. A current can become more than decoration when it changes movement. A wreck can become more than scenery when it suggests what happened before the pioneer arrived. Subnautica is at its best when the ocean does not feel like a backdrop for tasks, but like the source of every task. You do not simply go to the world. The world teaches you what going means. The cicada setup gives the sequel a melancholy edge. A colony ship is supposed to carry hope. It is supposed to mean planning, shelter, continuity, families, systems, and the possibility of a future. When that kind of ship becomes part of a survival emergency, the dream bends. The wreck or failed mission is metal in water and a broken promise at the same time. Subnautica 2 becomes frightening because the promise is still speaking through the AI, through objectives, through the idea that the mission should continue. Beauty comes from the desire to build a home. Terror comes from the suspicion that the place may not allow one. Alterra's presence adds another layer of discomfort. The company has always been useful and disturbing at once. It provides tools, blueprints, corporate language, and survival infrastructure, but its priorities rarely feel purely human. In Subnautica 2, the promise of a new life after conflict has that same double edge. A corporation offering salvation will never feel innocent in this universe, even when the equipment works, even when the fabricator hums, even when the base lights turn on. The question remains, who benefits if this ocean becomes a colony? That question makes the beautiful act of building feel less simple. Base building is where beauty becomes domestic. A habitat in Subnautica is not impressive because it is large. It is impressive because it contains air. The difference between outside and inside is everything. Outside, the water presses in all directions. Inside, there is floor, light, storage, crafting, and a moment where breath stops being a problem. Subnautica 2 keeps that emotional structure, and co-op can make it warmer. A shared base can feel like a tiny settlement, a room where several pioneers return from separate dives and bring back pieces of the planet. The ocean remains alien, but a wall with a window can make it feel almost neighbourly for a while. The window is the trick. A base without a view is only a bunker. A base with glass becomes a fragile theatre of safety. The sea moves outside, lit by lamps or moonlight glow, and the creatures pass by with no respect for the line between home and wilderness, except the line the glass enforces. That is why beauty and fear are strongest at the window. You are safe enough to watch. The thing you are watching is close enough to remind you that safety is a construction. A powered base can feel peaceful, but it never lets you forget where it is. Sound is probably the most important invisible thing in Subnautica. The water can be visually calm, while the audio makes the body suspicious. Distant calls, mechanical hums, muffled impacts, creature chirps, bass sounds, warning tones, and the soft breath of equipment all build a second map. Sometimes the ear knows the mood of a place before the eye does. A bright area can sound wrong. A dark area can become bearable if the soundscape is gentle. A leviathan becomes frightening long before its body is clear. In Subnautica 2, as in the earlier games, beauty is often what the eye wants, and terror is what the ear suspects. Music has to be careful in a world like this. Too much music would tell you how to feel. Too little can leave the sea empty. The best Subnautica mood happens when music and ambience seem to breathe with the environment rather than stand above it. A soft cue can make a reef feel holy. A low tone can make depth feel like a warning. Silence after sound can be worse than sound itself. The ocean is already a musical space. Currents, machinery, bubbles, animal calls, pressure, footsteps inside a base, the hum of a vehicle. Music works best when it knows it is joining an existing choir. The optional co-op changes fear without removing it. Being alone in Subnautica is pure exposure. Being with others turns exposure into shared attention. Someone can call out a predator, gather a resource, wait at the vehicle, or laugh at the wrong moment and break the fear for a second. But the ocean is large enough to swallow a group feeling. Co-op can make the shallows friendly. Yet a deep region can still separate people through distance, darkness, oxygen, and panic. The presence of another person does not make the sea smaller. It makes fear social. Now there is another voice to lose track of. That is why upcoming co-op improvements like voice chat, emotes, trading, signals, revives, and base building refinements are more than convenience. They can shape the emotional language of shared survival. A handoff of resources can feel like trust. A revive can turn disaster into relief. A signal can become a thin thread through a confusing route. Voice chat can make a distant call feel immediate in the dark. Subnautica 2's beauty may grow from that shared tenderness, while its terror grows from the knowledge that help can still be too far away. The absence of traditional weapon focus remains one of Subnautica's boldest choices. The developers have said the series is built around vulnerability, exploration, and survival rather than weapon-based combat. That can frustrate some people, especially when predator encounters feel too punishing, but the design idea is strong. The ocean is scarier when it cannot simply be conquered. A knife, a tool, a flare, a vehicle, a biomod, or a clever route may help. But the mood is not domination. The mood is negotiation. You do not defeat the ecosystem. You learn how to pass through it without becoming another scrap of meat in the water. Vulnerability is not weakness in Subnautica. It is the point of contact between human and world. If the Pioneer were too powerful, the alien sea would become scenery. Because the body is limited, every useful thing becomes precious. A light is precious. A tank is precious. A scanner is precious. A flare is precious. A small edible plant is precious. A fabricator is precious because it turns panic into procedure. This is how the series makes ordinary survival tools feel emotional. Beauty lives in grand vistas, but it also lives in the relief of finding what is needed before the body gives out. The survival loop works because it alternates between anxiety and recovery. Dive out. Gather, scan, misjudge distance. Hear something. Lose air. Find the route back. Reach the base. Craft. Upgrade. Look out the window. Decide to go farther. That rhythm is almost hypnotic. It can be calm without being empty, because each calm moment has been earned by danger, and each danger is made possible by the calm moment before it. Subnautica 2 does not need constant crisis. It needs the cycle. The breath out matters, because there will be another breath in. The early access state can actually strengthen that rhythm if handled carefully. An ocean that keeps receiving updates can feel like a place whose tides have not settled. A new biome later is more than extra content, it is a new direction for fear. A new creature can change the meaning of a route. A new tool can make an old hazard feel different. A new story chapter can turn a familiar structure into evidence. The danger is that constant caveating can break immersion, so the best way to hold it is simple. This is the ocean as it exists now, and the water is still growing. Subnautica 2 is beautiful because it understands that alien life should not exist only as threat. Harmless or nearly harmless creatures are essential. Small swimmers, strange grazers, little bottom dwellers, glowing organisms, and animals that seem busy with their own concerns make the ocean feel like a place rather than an arena. A world where every creature wants to attack would be less frightening, strangely enough, because it would be simpler. Mixed behaviour creates uncertainty. Some life ignores you, some flees, some studies you, some bites, some kills. That range makes the planet feel alive. The same range makes scanning emotionally rich. To scan something you have to slow down. You have to look at form, movement, texture and behaviour. The act itself is quiet, but it can be tense when the subject is dangerous. Subnautica has always found drama in scientific curiosity. The scanner is not a gun. It does not solve danger by removing it. It solves ignorance by describing it. That is a gentler kind of power. It fits the beauty of the series because it asks for attention instead of aggression. Alien ruins add a different kind of beauty, one made from absence. A ruin underwater is already haunting because it suggests intention where no human intention belongs. Lines, doors, machines, pillars, research spaces, or strange architecture all interrupt the organic shapes of the sea. They say that something thought here, something built here, something left, failed, died, moved on, or is still waiting. The moment a ruin appears, the ocean stops being only ecology and becomes history. Terror changes too. A predator can kill the body, but a ruin can disturb the mind. The old architect legacy from the previous games gives any alien structure extra weight, even when Subnautica 2 is set on a different world. The series has taught us that intelligent alien systems can outlast their creators, that facilities can remain active long after their purpose has become unclear, and that a machine voice may not understand human fear. So when Subnautica 2 presents alien technology or old structures, the memory of 4546b travels with it. A doorway is never just a doorway. It might be a question left by a species that measured time differently. The planet's life also feels beautiful because it does not need human approval. A creature does not become meaningful only when it helps survival. It has its own shape, its own route, its own strange place in the system. This is one of the reasons the series keeps working. The ocean does not feel built entirely around the survivor, even though it is designed for a survival experience. It feels as if the survivor has entered a living pattern already underway. That illusion is fragile and precious. When it works, even a useless animal can make the world more convincing. Resource gathering can be oddly calming because it turns terror into routine. Find ore, bring it back, process it, craft a component, build an upgrade. Repeat, on the surface, that sounds mechanical. In the water, it feels like learning a language. Certain rocks mean certain possibilities, certain regions mean certain materials. A dangerous route becomes worth taking because one resource sits beyond it. A tool is not merely made, it is earned through geography. The world teaches progress by making the body travel. But resource gathering can also make beauty feel predatory. A glowing mineral in a dark place is a lure. A new material just beyond safe depth is a dare. A plant tucked inside a cave becomes a reason to ignore the oxygen warning for a few more seconds. Subnautica knows how desire works. It places useful things where comfort thins. The ocean does not have to force a mistake. It can simply offer something pretty, necessary or mysterious, and wait for curiosity to overrule caution. Depth is the simplest symbol in the series, and it never gets old. Down means progress, danger, mystery, and distance from air. The surface is safety, or at least the memory of safety. The deeper route is where answers hide. Subnautica 2 inherits this vertical storytelling. A flat map can be explored like territory. A deep ocean is explored like a descent. Every meter downward feels like a small agreement with fear. The body knows it is moving away from where it belongs, even when the mind wants what is below. Light gives that descent its mood. Shallows can feel gentle because light reveals edges. The deeper water hides monsters and certainty together. A flashlight makes a narrow tunnel visible, but it also creates a cone of ignorance around itself. Everything outside the beam becomes more mysterious because the beam exists. Vehicle lights do the same thing on a larger scale. They help, and they betray. They show the route, and they announce presence. A lamp in Subnautica is never innocent. It is comfort with a cost. Currents, if used well, bring another form of alien pressure. A current says the water is not passive. It has direction. It has force. It can help or interfere. Being moved by water is different from walking into danger. It suggests that the environment has its own momentum, and the body is only borrowing space inside it. A current can feel beautiful when it carries particles, plants, or creatures through a glowing channel. It can feel terrifying when it pulls movement away from control. The ocean becomes less like a room and more like a living system of pressures. Subnautica 2's horror also comes from being a colony story, where the colony is not established yet. Many science fiction settings show colonies after they have become towns, factories, domes, or ruins. Here, the settlement feeling is young and fragile. A first base, a first vehicle, a first repaired system, a first route to a ruin. These are beginnings. Beginnings are tender. They are also easy to destroy. The beauty is that a human future might take root under alien water. The terror is that every root is still thin. The AI voice adds a chill because it can sound calm while the situation is not. Subnautica has always understood the discomfort of automated systems speaking politely through disaster. A machine can announce danger without fear, give instructions without doubt, and preserve a mission objective after the human meaning of that objective has changed. In Subnautica 2, the insistence that the mission should continue after things go wrong creates a quiet conflict between survival and purpose. The machine may be useful. It may also be wrong in a way only machines can be wrong, clearly, logically, and without grief. That calm machine layer contrasts with the messy body. The body needs oxygen, it gets hungry, it gets thirsty, it panics when bitten. It moves slower than fear wants it to. It cannot interpret every sound. It has to return, repair, craft, eat, drink, sleep, and try again. The beauty of Subnautica comes partly from this humility. Space science, colony ships, alien ruins, advanced tools, and modified biology all come down to a very old truth. A living body underwater has needs it cannot negotiate away. The sea becomes beautiful when those needs are met for a moment. A full oxygen tank, a repaired vehicle, a stocked base, a clear route, a known predator path, a lit room, a storage locker with enough materials for the next plan. These are not glamorous victories, but Subnautica makes them feel like peace. It is a rare game series that understands how good it feels to be prepared. Preparation is calm made physical. The sea becomes terrifying when preparation fails by a small margin. One wrong turn in a cave, one damaged vehicle left too far away, one predator encounter that uses the last bit of health, one missing ingredient for an upgrade, one decision to keep going after the warning. Subnautica's fear is rarely about pure helplessness. It is about the almost. Almost enough air. Almost enough distance. Almost back to the base. Almost through the tunnel. Almost safe. That is why the fear stays in the hands after the moment passes. There is a special beauty in returning. The path back to a base, a life pod, or a vehicle can become more emotional than the path out. On the way out, curiosity leads. On the way back, the body counts. The same reef looks different when oxygen is low. The same tunnel seems longer. The same harmless fish becomes an obstacle because it interrupts movement. When the hatch finally opens, the relief is physical. Subnautica turns arrival into a small rescue, over and over again. That repeated rescue is why the series can be strangely soothing even while frightening. Fear rises, then resolves. The world threatens, then allows rest. The cycle gives the mind a pattern. In Subnautica 2, the pattern is strengthened by the fact that the ocean is not purely hostile. It is dangerous, yes, but it is also full of resources, roots, beauty, and life that continues whether the pioneer succeeds or not. The sea does not hate you. It simply is. That lack of malice makes the terror calmer, and in some ways deeper. A malicious world can be understood as an enemy. An indifferent world is harder to argue with. A predator bites because it is a predator. Oxygen runs out because lungs need air. Depth crushes because pressure does not care about courage. A corporate mission fails because systems and ambition collided with reality. An alien ruin remains silent because it was not built to comfort humans. Subnautica 2 feels frightening because so much of its danger does not feel personal. It is easier to hate a villain than to hate water, yet the same indifference creates beauty. The reef does not glow to impress anyone. The fish does not swim for applause. The plant does not pulse because a human arrived. The world feels beautiful because it seems to have reasons beyond human use. That is rare and powerful. Even when the design is carefully built, the fantasy is that life is happening without permission. You are lucky to see it. You are not entitled to own it. The new planet also gives Subnautica 2 permission to be unfamiliar in small, uncomfortable ways. The sequel can become too cozy if it only repeats the old shapes. A new ocean has to keep a few old promises while breaking a few old reflexes. A familiar tool may lead into an unfamiliar route. A vehicle may feel safe until the terrain around it refuses to behave like the old terrain. A plant may look decorative and turn out to be part of progression, or a creature may seem like background life until it teaches a biomod. That uncertainty is useful. It stops the mind from relaxing into pure nostalgia. Nostalgia is a dangerous thing for a sequel like this. The first Subnautica taught many people how to fear water in a very specific way. The sound of a reaper, the first time the seafloor disappeared, the first base in the safe shallows, the first long trip toward the aurora, the first glimpse of the lost river, all of that became personal memory. Subnautica 2 cannot erase those memories, and it should not try. Its job is stranger. It has to make the old fear wake up in a new body. The water has to say, yes, you remember this, but not enough. That is why Subnautica 2 feels strongest when it lets recognition and doubt sit together. The fabricator is familiar. The relief of air is familiar. The scanner is familiar. The logic of resources and upgrades is familiar. Then the names change, the routes change, the creatures change, and the mystery changes. Familiarity gives the courage to enter. Doubt gives the courage a cost. A sequel that used only doubt would feel alienating. A sequel that used only familiarity would feel dead. Subnautica 2 lives between them. The shallows are important because they teach the first emotional grammar of the ocean. A starting area in Subnautica cannot be too safe in the ordinary sense, because the whole series depends on a little unease. It also cannot be cruel immediately, because curiosity has to survive. So the opening water usually works like a hand placed lightly on the shoulder. Here is light. Here is movement. Here are resources. Here are little threats. Here is a place to learn how far breath can take you. The terror is still mild, but it is present from the first dive, because even shallow water is water. The word shallow can fool the mind. Shallow does not mean harmless. Shallow means closer to air. It means more light, easier navigation, and a better chance of recovery if something goes wrong. But the ecosystem does not sign a peace treaty just because the surface is nearby. Small predators can still nip. Caves can still confuse. Hunger and thirst can still interrupt plans. The first region in a Subnautica game is less a safe zone than a classroom with teeth taped under the desks. It teaches gently, but it teaches. The beauty of early exploration is that everything feels oversized by ignorance. A resource deposit becomes important because you do not yet know how common it is. A wreckage fragment becomes exciting because it might unlock comfort. A small alien animal becomes memorable because it is one of the first living things to share the water with you. Later, when the map is known, some of that magic fades. Early Subnautica beauty comes from not knowing what will become routine. Every object has the glow of possibility. That early glow is also why fear can arrive from almost nothing. A shadow passes under the water. A call sounds from behind a ridge. A tunnel bends out of sight. The tank is half full. None of that is dramatic by itself, but the mind is new to the place, so it amplifies everything. Subnautica 2 takes advantage of that first night feeling. The world has not yet been sorted into safe and unsafe boxes. Until it is sorted, every sound gets a vote. The Welcome Center and early human structures create a different kind of fear from the wild ocean. Human architecture underwater should feel reassuring, but it often feels wrong. A facility suggests planning. Planning suggests people. If the place is quiet, broken, or half-functioning, the absence becomes louder. A reef can be empty and feel natural. A room built for people feels haunted when the people are missing. Subnautica has always used that contrast well, and the colony premise makes it sharper. A structure meant for arrival becomes evidence that arrival did not go cleanly. The word pioneer has an old romance around it, but Subnautica 2 makes the word uneasy. A pioneer is someone who goes first, builds first, risks first. Pioneering also means entering a place that already exists and acting as if it is waiting for you. That tension sits underneath the whole mood. The planet is not empty just because humans have plans for it. It has animals, ruins, currents, hazards, resources, and perhaps histories older than the mission. The beauty of pioneering is courage. The terror is arrogance. That arrogance is softened by how small the pioneer feels in the water. Whatever Alterra planned, whatever the cicada carried, whatever the AI insists, the actual body in the sea is vulnerable. It swims through a world that does not look impressed by corporate language. A Leviathan will not care about a mission statement. A cave will not widen because a colony needs minerals. A predator will not stop being hungry because the future of humanity sounds important. The ocean quietly cuts every big human idea down to breath, light and distance. Subnautica 2's beauty is never just visual polish. It is the beauty of a world that seems to have internal habits. Creatures circle, lurk, flee, swarm, graze, shock, bite, hide or drift. Plants cluster where the environment allows. Resources appear in places that teach root and risk. Structures stand where story has passed through. When these things work together, the ocean feels like a living argument instead of a decorated level. The water is saying something through behaviour, not exposition. The hardest part of that design is making danger feel ecological rather than mechanical. A creature that appears only to punish exploration can feel fake. A creature that seems to occupy territory, react to intrusion, and follow its own pattern becomes more convincing. This is why the developers' attention to creature aggression, perception, flares, tools, vehicles, and bases is so important. The numbers behind the scenes affect whether the sea feels alive. A few meters of detection range can change a mood. A delay between attacks can turn irritation into suspense. Suspense needs room. A creature that is always on top of the pioneer leaves no room for imagination. A creature that can be heard, glimpsed, avoided, misunderstood, and then encountered creates a larger fear. The mind fills the space between signs. It turns sound into size. It turns a distant silhouette into a possible disaster. Subnautica's best horror often happens before contact. Contact is loud and clear. Before contact, the mind has to invent the missing information, and the mind is very good at scaring itself. The same is true of darkness. Total darkness can become boring if it only hides everything. Subnautica darkness works best when it hides most things while revealing just enough. A little glow from a plant, the edge of a rock, a pair of moving shapes, the outline of a vehicle, a hint of wreckage, a faint route through stone, these fragments keep the mind active. Full blindness stops interpretation. Partial sight creates it. the ocean becomes a half-finished sentence. Beauty also depends on partial sight. A creature glimpsed through blue distance can be more beautiful than a creature seen perfectly under bright light. Distance gives it mystery. Water bends the view. Particles soften its shape. Movement becomes more important than detail. Subnautica 2 can make a simple silhouette feel alive because the sea acts like a veil. It does not show and hide as opposites. It shows by hiding. The body understands pressure even when a screen cannot truly create it. Deeper water looks heavier. Sound feels more muffled. Roots feel longer. The surface becomes a memory instead of a location. Subnautica uses that imagined pressure with great care. The deeper you go, the more each object seems to sit under a weight it cannot name. Even a beautiful area can feel heavy if it is far enough down. That heaviness becomes emotional. The water is not crushing the room, but it is crushing the idea that escape is easy. Vehicles complicate that pressure. Inside the tadpole, or any later vehicle the game adds, the body borrows a shell. The shell resists depth better than skin. It stores safety. It carries light. It lets the root stretch. But it also adds another layer of anxiety. A vehicle has durability, power, position, and limits. It can become a lifeline or a liability. In Subnautica, technology is comforting only until it starts to fail. The moment a vehicle is damaged, the ocean feels larger than it did before. The fear of losing a vehicle is different from the fear of dying. The death resets or punishes depending on the situation. A stranded or damaged vehicle becomes a problem with memory attached. It marks a place where confidence went wrong. It may sit in dangerous water like a wounded animal. Retrieving it can become a whole story. This is why vehicles in Subnautica feel strangely personal. They are tools, yes, but they are also companions made of metal and battery charge. Tools carry their own emotional weight. A scanner means curiosity. A light means nerve. A flare means distraction and hope. A survival tool means a limited answer to panic. A builder means the dream of shelter. A repair tool means damage can be answered. Each tool changes the sea by changing what the body believes it can attempt. Subnautica 2 feels beautiful when a tool opens a new route. It feels terrifying when the tool is almost right, but not enough. That almost right feeling is everywhere in good survival design. You have a base, but it is not deep enough. You have a vehicle, but not the next module. You have oxygen, but not enough for the full cave. You have a biomod, but only one active and one passive slot in the current build, so the choice itself becomes a kind of pressure. Do you want movement, direction, stealth, endurance, or escape? A choice feels meaningful when choosing one comfort means giving up another. The biomods are especially interesting because they turn alien biology into strategy without making the world feel like a simple skill menu. The strongest version of the idea is not a menu granting power. It is the ocean's creatures teaching the body what survival might become. A fast animal suggests speed. A hidden animal suggests camouflage. A shocking animal suggests defense. A creature suited to scarce food suggests endurance. The planet is dangerous, but it is also instructional, if anyone can get close enough to read it. There is unease in that intimacy. Studying a creature for adaptation feels different from mining a rock. A rock does not look back. The creature moves, flees, threatens, or ignores. It is alive before it becomes data. The scanner can make that relationship feel respectful, clinical, or invasive depending on the moment. Subnautica 2's most interesting beauty may live there, in the uncomfortable space between science and survival. You are learning the ocean, but you are also using it. Blight, as a current concern in the roadmap and early access improvements, gives the world another emotional texture. A healthy alien ecosystem is already strange. A troubled ecosystem is stranger. Blight suggests spread, imbalance, contamination, or some condition that must be understood rather than merely seen. It adds a sickly note to the beauty. A glowing field or strange growth may be pretty at first glance, then troubling when its meaning becomes clearer. Subnautica is good at that turn, beauty first, diagnosis later. That turn is important because horror in Subnautica often begins as wonder. A giant creature may be majestic before it is threatening. A cave may be beautiful before it becomes confusing. A ruin may be elegant before it feels like evidence. A biological growth may be colourful before it suggests infection. The game rarely needs to switch genres. It only needs to let curiosity walk far enough that wonder starts casting a shadow. The colony story adds an unusual sadness to environmental beauty. If humanity needs a new home, then every beautiful place becomes a possible answer to desperation. But the more beautiful the place is, the more uncomfortable the idea of settlement becomes. A glowing reef might be shelter, resource, obstacle, sacred ecosystem, or future construction site. The pioneer may see it with awe. Altera may see it with plans. The ocean itself may offer no opinion, which somehow makes the conflict worse. This is where Subnautica 2 can feel more mature than a simple survival premise. Survival asks, how do I live here tonight? Settlement asks, what does living here do to the place? The first question is urgent. The second is slower and more unsettling. A base that saves one person is beautiful. A network of bases that changes an ecosystem is more complicated. The series does not need to preach about that. It only needs to let the colony premise sit next to alien life long enough for the unease to grow. The older games trained us to distrust corporate neatness, and that training follows into the sequel. Altera's clean systems can help. They can also flatten mystery into assets and instructions. A planet becomes a destination. A living world becomes a project. A dangerous ecology becomes a set of problems to manage. The terror is not that Altera is always wrong in every practical sense. The terror is that Altera can be useful and still be spiritually cold. The tools may save a life, while the language around them quietly reduces that life to a mission variable. The AI's insistence that the mission continue works so well because it sounds like order in a situation that deserves grief. Something has gone wrong. People may be missing, dead, stranded, or scattered. The ocean has not been understood. And yet the system keeps moving. Continue the mission. Build, adapt, survive. It is helpful, but it is also eerie. A calm voice in a disaster can comfort the body while unsettling the mind. Subnautica has always loved that contradiction. The Peter-like voice tradition in the series is one of its smartest inventions. A neutral machine voice can say ridiculous, frightening, or tragic things without raising its tone. That flatness leaves the emotion inside the human body. If the voice panicked, the mood would be too obvious. Because it remains calm, the gap between situation and delivery becomes funny, lonely, and scary all at once. Subnautica 2's machine guidance has that same potential. The more calmly the system names danger, the more alone the human feeling becomes. Loneliness changes in co-op, but it does not disappear. A group can still be lonely inside a huge place. In fact, co-op may create new kinds of loneliness. Someone swims out of sight. Someone's voice cuts off. Someone stays at the base while another goes deeper. Someone dies, waits, or needs help. The ocean can separate people without walls. Water is good at making distance feel soft until it becomes absolute. A friend nearby can make the next few meters easier. A friend far away can make the darkness feel worse. The option to play alone matters because the series' original silence is still part of its identity. Some people will want Subnautica 2 as a shared expedition. Others will want the older Solitude, where every sound belongs either to the world or to machinery. Both versions can be true. The same ocean can become social or solitary depending on how it is entered. That flexibility is interesting, because fear is personal. One person fears being alone. Another fears being responsible for someone else. The sea can use both. A shared base has a different beauty from a solitary one. A solitary base feels like a private thought made of walls. A shared base feels like a small culture beginning under pressure. Storage habits, room placement, lighting choices, vehicle docks, windows and routes become communal. Someone builds too much glass. Someone puts lockers in an inconvenient place. Someone brings back exactly the resource everyone needed. These small human messes soften the alien world. They also make danger more painful, because a shared shelter feels like more than one person's hope. The best co-op survival stories are rarely about perfect efficiency. They are about little mistakes, taking the wrong route, forgetting food, misjudging depth, laughing while something terrible approaches, dropping a tool, returning with the wrong material, getting separated because one person saw something glowing and followed it. Subnautica 2's beauty may come from those imperfect shared moments as much as from official story beats. The ocean creates conditions. People create memory inside them. Still, the sea has to stay bigger than the group. If 4 people can trivialize every danger, the mood collapses. The ocean should let teamwork help, without letting teamwork turn the world into a theme park. The group should feel clever for surviving, not superior to the planet. That balance will probably keep changing through early access, especially as co-op features improve. The goal is delicate. Make cooperation warm, but leave the depths cold. Early access feedback is part of the story now, though it should not drown out the ocean itself. The developers have already patched crashes, DLC issues, performance concerns, terms of service confusion, resource distribution, creature behaviour, and vehicle-related oddities. For a normal technical review, those notes might be dry. For understanding the feeling of Subnautica 2, they show how fragile atmosphere is. A predator following a vehicle back to base can turn fear into annoyance. A crash can turn tension into frustration. A missing resource can turn exploration into exhaustion. Atmosphere depends on practical details behaving well enough to vanish. That is a useful lesson for any beautiful game. Beauty comes from art direction, and from friction removed at the right time. If performance stutters during awe breaks. If a creature bugs out during fear becomes comedy. If a base system fights the hand too much, shelter loses its calm. The practical work of hotfixes protects the poetic work of the ocean. A smoother dock, a better tool response, a fairer predator pattern, these are not glamorous, but they help the dream survive. The roadmap's promise of larger expansions matters because Subnautica fear depends on horizons. A known map eventually becomes comfortable. A future biome keeps the edge alive. A future creature means the bestiary is not closed. A future vehicle means mobility may change. A future story chapter means current mysteries are not done speaking. The ocean feels most alive when it has more to say than has already been heard. Early access keeps that sensation in the real world as well as inside the fiction. but a sleep-style exploration of Subnautica 2 should not keep repeating that it is early access. Once that fact is understood, the better move is to let the ocean breathe. Constant caveats can make the writing sound like a store page. The useful truth is simple: the game is growing. From there, the atmosphere should belong to the water, the creatures, the body, the bases, and the fear. Nobody drifts off to system requirements. They drift off to pressure, distance, blue light, and the strange comfort of reaching the hatch in time. The colour of Subnautica 2's beauty is important, because alien oceans need to avoid looking like ordinary Earth documentaries with extra fins. The water can be blue, green, violet, black, gold, or cloudy depending on place and depth. Colour becomes emotional signage. Warm colours can invite, sick colours can warn. Pale glow can make a cavern feel holy or diseased. Dark blue can feel peaceful until it becomes bottomless. The same colour can change meaning when a predator moves through it. Organic shapes do a lot of quiet work. Soft plants, ribbed growths, coral-like structures, fan shapes, tendrils, bulbous organisms, shells, spines, and floating membranes all tell the mind that the world was not built for human comfort. Straight lines usually mean technology. Curves and irregular growth mean life. When the two mix, as they do around bases, wrecks, and alien ruins, the mood becomes richer. Human-made objects look temporary against biology. Alien-made objects look ancient because they do not obey familiar design language. Best alien life in Subnautica avoids random weirdness. It feels plausible enough to watch, but strange enough to unsettle. A creature needs a silhouette, a behaviour, a habitat, and a reason to remember it. The Reaper had a sound and a shape. The Sea Emperor had intelligence and sorrow. The Shadow Leviathan had its own nightmare grace. Subnautica 2's creatures need their own signatures, and the early roster already shows that Unknown Worlds knows creature identity as emotional design, not merely model design. The Hammerhead name alone carries a lot. It calls up a real-world shark shape, but Subnautica can twist that expectation into something alien. Familiar animal language makes the creature easier to remember. The unfamiliar behaviour makes it dangerous again. The same applies to names like Nibbler, Marrow Breach, or Collector Leviathan. These names are simple, almost blunt, but that bluntness helps. A creature name should sound like something a diver would actually use after surviving an encounter. Fancy taxonomy can come later. First comes the nickname Shouted in Panic. The Collector Leviathan's name is especially good because it implies behaviour before size. A Reaper reaps. A Collector collects. That small verb turns the creature into a story before it appears. What does it collect? Why? Is collection hunger, territory, curiosity, aggression, or instinct? A good Leviathan name makes the mind begin writing danger before the body sees it. That is how fear becomes efficient. It does not wait for full information. A Leviathan with tentacles changes the texture of fear. Teeth frighten through biting. Tentacles frighten through grabbing. Being bitten is sudden damage. Being grabbed is loss of control. Underwater, that loss of control feels worse, because movement is already softened by resistance. A tentacle creature suggests being held in a medium where escape was never easy. The horror is not simply death, it is capture, rotation, helpless proximity, the sense of a huge body deciding what happens next. The developers have described the Collector as reactive, with mood cues and behaviour that can be read. That is the right direction for Subnautica. A Leviathan should be terrifying, but it should not feel like a coin toss. The best encounters leave room for the body to learn. Sound means mood. Distance means chance. Cover means a plan. Fleeing means survival. If those meanings hold, fear becomes respect. If they fail, fear becomes complaint. The difference is small in code and enormous in the body. Beauty around a leviathan is complicated. A huge creature can be gorgeous in motion. The curve of a body, the sweep of fins, the slow confidence of a patrol, the way it displaces attention before it displaces water, all of that can be magnificent. Then it turns, and magnificence becomes threat. Subnautica's genius is that it rarely asks you to choose one reaction. You can admire a creature while backing away from it. In fact, admiration may be what gets you too close. That closeness is central to the series. Subnautica repeatedly tempts the eye before punishing the hand. You want to see. You want to scan. You want to know what is behind the ridge. You want to confirm whether that sound belongs to what you think it belongs to. Curiosity is the engine. Fear is the brake. Beauty presses the gas. The whole experience lives in the foot hovering between them. The absence of a heavy combat solution keeps that foot hovering. If every creature could simply be killed for safety, curiosity would become conquest. There is a place for combat in many survival games, but Subnautica's personality depends on restraint. A flare, a dodge, a hiding place, a route through cover, a vehicle escape, a biomod choice. Those are more interesting here than a trophy pile. The ocean should remain sovereign. The pioneer survives by understanding enough, not by winning a war against every mouth in the water. That is why the request for direct creature killing, mentioned by the developers in their community letter, is so revealing. People ask for combat when avoidance does not feel satisfying. The request is not always bloodlust. Sometimes it is frustration looking for an outlet. The studio's response was smart. The series is built around vulnerability, but vulnerability only works when encounters feel fair. In other words, the answer is not necessarily stronger weapons. The answer may be better trust between the creature and the person trying to survive it. Trust is an odd word for horror, but it fits. You trust a good horror scene to scare you without cheating. You trust a survival game to punish mistakes without disguising nonsense as difficulty. You trust the ocean to be dangerous in ways that can be learned. That trust lets the body relax enough to be frightened. Without it, the mind becomes defensive and irritated. Subnautica 2's ongoing balance changes are not separate from atmosphere. They are the maintenance of trust. The beauty of Fair Fear is that it creates stories. A random death becomes a complaint. A narrow escape becomes a memory. The difference is whether the moment made sense afterward. If the route was too deep, if the sound was ignored, if the vehicle was parked badly, if the oxygen warning was dismissed, then survival or failure becomes part of learning. The ocean feels like a teacher with no mercy but no malice. That is a very specific mood, and Subnautica does it better than almost anything else. The moment after a scare is often more beautiful than the calm before it. After escaping a predator, the same reef can seem brighter. After reaching air with seconds left, the base feels warmer. After repairing damage, the vehicle feels more valuable. Fear refreshes beauty by reminding the body that peace is not guaranteed. A safe place that has never been threatened is comfortable. A safe place reached after danger feels beloved. Subnautica 2's calmest beauty may be in routine. Sorting storage. Building a room. Parking the tadpole. Looking over a route. Crafting an upgrade. Swimming a familiar path at dusk. or whatever passes for dusk in that alien water. Routine gives the world credibility. It says life here contains chores as well as emergencies. There are preferences. There is the slow conversion of terror into habit. A terrifying world becomes beautiful when you know it well enough to have errands. But habit is never total. The ocean keeps one hand closed. A known route can still surprise. A harmless area can feel different in darkness. A creature update can alter behaviour. A new biome can redraw mental borders. A resource need can push travel farther than usual. The game protects its mystery by allowing comfort to exist, then gently exceeding it. That is why Subnautica can stay engaging after the first fear fades. It keeps inventing new edges. The story mystery around why the AI insists the mission continue is exactly the kind of question Subnautica likes. It is practical on the surface and uncanny underneath. A mission has goals. Goals imply reasons. If the human situation has changed, why does the goal remain? Is the AI preserving a plan, hiding a truth, following bad instructions, protecting something, or misunderstanding something essential? The question is good because it colours every order. A simple task can feel suspicious when the voice giving it may know more than it says. Mystery works best when it follows ordinary tasks. If a story only appears in grand cutscenes, it can feel separate from survival. Subnautica hides story in wrecks, scans, rooms, messages, ruins and routes. The result is a world where curiosity about narrative and curiosity about resources often share the same path. You go somewhere for a tool and find a question. You follow a question and discover a resource. That braid keeps exposition from feeling like homework. The ocean tells the story while making you swim. The sequel's colony frame could make that braid even stronger. A failed or interrupted settlement effort leaves behind logistics, landing sites, supply caches, damaged systems, research spaces, temporary shelters, equipment, instructions, and messages. These are not glamorous story devices, but they are perfect for Subnautica. A half-built system underwater can say more than a speech. It shows ambition interrupted. Someone planned this. Someone needed this. Something happened before the plan became ordinary. That is why wreckage remains powerful. A wreck is both object and event. It is metal, storage, compartments, broken routes, and salvage. It is also a memory of impact. In an underwater game, wreckage gains another layer because the sea begins to claim it. Plants grow near it, creatures move through it, sediment gathers. Light enters at odd angles. The human object becomes part of the alien world without becoming fully natural. That in-between state is beautiful and sad. Subnautica 2's terror is also helped by the fact that water makes every interior feel temporary. A hallway in a spaceship wreck or facility is frightening because the outside is all around it. A leak, a broken door, a dark room, or a flooded passage carries a different mood when the entire structure is surrounded by pressure. Buildings on land can be abandoned. Buildings underwater feel besieged. The sea is always touching the walls. The same pressure makes small sounds intimate. A footstep inside a base, the hatch opening, the vehicle docking, the fabricator working, the muffled shift of water outside. These sounds become domestic music. They are the noises of not dying. Subnautica 2 can feel deeply beautiful when it lets mechanical sound become comfort. The hum of a working system is less dramatic than a vista, but sometimes it matters more. A machine that works means the night, or the deep, can be endured. There is a quiet sadness in every base because it is built against loneliness. Even in co-op, shelter exists because the world outside cannot be trusted forever. Every locker and window says someone expected to come back. Every light says darkness was close enough to answer. Every corridor says movement outside was difficult enough to make inside movement precious. The beauty of a base is not luxury, it is refusal. It says the ocean is vast, but here, for now, there is a room. The game becomes more beautiful when it allows ugly practical things to matter. Hunger, thirst, resource shortages, repairs, storage problems, energy, roots and oxygen are not glamorous, but they keep the fantasy grounded. A purely pretty alien ocean could become wallpaper. A beautiful ocean that still demands water, food, power and planning becomes a place. The chores are part of the spell. Without them, all would float away. There is also something honest about how small improvements feel huge. A little more oxygen changes courage. A faster route changes the map. A base module changes the meaning of a region. A biomod changes the body. A vehicle upgrade changes depth. Subnautica understands that progress does not need to be loud to feel good. Sometimes the greatest feeling is realizing that a place that once seemed impossible has become reachable. The world has not shrunk. You have changed enough to enter it. That kind of progress is beautiful because it respects memory. The first time a trench is too deep, it becomes a boundary. Later, with better preparation, returning to that boundary feels personal. You remember the earlier fear. You remember turning back. When you finally cross it, the crossing means something. Subnautica 2's future depends on preserving that emotional map. Places should become memories before they become routes. The terror of returning is also real. A place once avoided carries a reputation in the mind. Even with better tools, the old fear can remain. A vehicle may now handle the depth, but the body remembers the warning. A biomod may help with escape, but the ear remembers the sound. That lingering fear is valuable. It stops progress from becoming arrogance. The best upgrades make the world more accessible without making it harmless. Weather and surface conditions, if emphasized as the game grows, can add another layer to this feeling. Surface water is usually associated with relief because it means air. But a surface can also be stormy, dark or disorienting. The line between water and sky is emotionally important. In Subnautica, surfacing is not always pure safety. It can be a pause, a view, a moment to breathe, or a reminder that the world above is not home either. Subnautica 2's colony premise makes that surface line even more interesting, because the future may be below, not above. The original Subnautica had one of the best uses of ecological innocence in survival horror. Many creatures were simply living. That makes the dangerous ones more powerful. Subnautica 2 needs that same ecological innocence. The water should contain life that is funny, pretty, useless, annoying, helpful, passive, territorial, and terrifying. A range of life gives the world moral texture. If everything attacks, the world becomes a dungeon. If most things live and only some things attack, the world becomes an ocean. Funny creatures matter more than they seem. A strange little fish, an awkward movement, a ridiculous sound, or a harmless creature behaving with total confidence can soften the fear. That softness is not a distraction from horror. It is part of horror's contrast. The mind relaxes around the odd little thing, then the deep call arrives from somewhere else. A world with humour feels more alive, and a living world is scarier to lose yourself in. The small names of things matter too. Tadpole, nibbler, hammerhead, marrow breach, biomod, cicada. These words are not dense lore terms. They are practical, memorable, slightly odd, and easy to carry. Subnautica has always benefited from names that sound like something a field scientist, engineer, or exhausted survivor might actually say. The language is not trying too hard to sound mythic. The myth grows from use. Cicada is a particularly good name because it suggests emergence after hidden time. Cicadas are known for long periods underground before they surface in overwhelming sound. A colony ship carrying humans toward a new ocean world has a similar symbolic shape, even if the game does not need to spell it out. People hidden in transit. A future expected to emerge. Then disaster. The name hums under the premise, whether consciously noticed or not. Subnautica 2's horror is also a horror of systems. Oxygen systems, power systems, corporate systems, AI systems, colony systems, ecological systems, alien systems, early access development systems. Some are fictional, some are real. All of them can fail. The ocean sits at the meeting point of those failures. A broken system underwater is frightening because there is no easy outside to step into. Failure has to be solved inside the environment that punishes delay. That is why the series feels different from space survival, even though it shares science fiction bones. Space is vacuum, distance, stars, metal and silence. Subnautica's ocean is close, wet, living, muffled, and constantly touching the body. Space horror often fears emptiness. Ocean horror fears presence. Something might be near. Something might be under. Something might brush the glass. Something might have already heard you. Subnautica 2's beauty depends on that crowded presence. The ocean's crowding can be subtle. Predators are only part of it. There are particles floating through light, plants moving slightly, small animals crossing the path, sounds travelling through water, terrain rising unexpectedly, resources tucked into crevices, and the constant sensation that line of sight is limited by a medium full of life. The screen may show open water, but the imagination fills it. Empty blue is rarely empty for long. This is why open water may be scarier than a cave. A cave has walls. Walls can trap, but they also define. Open water gives no comfort of shape. There may be nothing for a creature to hide behind, and that somehow makes the fear worse, because the darkness itself becomes the hiding place. The body wants edges. The sea withholds them. Subnautica 2 can make a plain or open channel frightening simply by letting there be too much room. Caves frighten differently. They take away direction. A cave does not need a large creature to become dangerous. It needs turns, ceilings, narrow exits, beautiful distractions, and just enough branching to make memory unreliable. Oxygen transforms cave beauty into risk. Every glowing wall asks for attention. Every attention cost is time. A cave can be gorgeous while quietly stealing the return route from the mind. The best cave feeling comes when the route is almost understandable. Too simple, and there is no fear. Too confusing, and the fear becomes frustration. But a cave with one questionable fork, one narrow squeeze, one resource in the back, one sound from outside, one moment where the exit is not immediately visible, that is Subnautica at its finest. It turns navigation into emotion. Navigation itself is a form of storytelling. A map is a tool, and also a memory of fear organised into shape. The first trip to a place feels dangerous because the route is unknown. The second trip feels different because the body recognises landmarks. By the fifth trip, the region may feel almost domestic. Then, a deeper branch or new objective reopens the fear. Subnautica 2's world can be judged partly by how well it creates those layers of familiarity. Landmarks need character. A good Subnautica landmark needs more than size. It has to be useful for orientation and emotionally distinct. A strange arch, a wreck piece, a glowing field, a rock pillar, a ruin entrance, a current, a dangerous patrol, a base window facing a specific view. These things hold the map together. Beauty becomes practical. Fear becomes geographical. The mind learns where things are and how places feel. Subnautica 2's larger world updates will likely decide how deep that emotional geography becomes. New biomes are not valuable simply because they add square footage. They need identity. A good biome changes the body. It changes sound, route, colour, creature behaviour, resource logic and risk. It teaches a different posture. The best Subnautica regions are remembered not by checklist, but by sensation. Warm shallows, kelp sway, green deep river, lava heat, Arctic glare. Subnautica 2 needs its own sensations, and the early pieces are already pointing toward that work. The beauty of an alien biome comes from coherence. Everything does not have to be realistic in a strict scientific sense, but it should feel like it belongs to itself. Plants, creatures, terrain, colour and resources should seem to share a logic. When a biome has that logic, entering it feels like entering a mood. The world stops being random. It begins to feel authored by ecology, even though art and design are doing the work behind the curtain. Terror comes when that coherent mood includes one thing that does not welcome you. A beautiful biome with no threat can become a postcard. A dangerous biome with no beauty can become a chore. The Subnautica balance is a beautiful place with a reason to be careful. The reason may be a predator, depth, temperature, oxygen, confusing geometry, poor visibility, or some biological hazard. The specific danger can change. What matters is that beauty asks a price. The most human part of Subnautica 2 may be the desire to decorate. The Reaper Leviathan statue blueprint given after the 5 million wishlist milestone is funny and revealing. A miniature symbol of old terror becomes base decoration. That is exactly how people work. We take fear, shrink it, place it on a shelf, and pretend we have mastered it. The Little Reaper statue in A New Ocean says memory has become ornament. It is cute, but it also shows how deeply the first game's fear entered the culture around the series. Base decoration matters because shelter is psychological before it is aesthetic. A bare base keeps the body alive. A personalised base tells the mind it has somewhere to belong. Windows, plants, objects, storage layout, vehicle bays, lights and little trophies all turn a structure into a place. In a terrifying ocean, beauty inside the base is a form of resistance. It says survival is not enough. Something in the human mind still wants a room to feel like home. That desire for home is what makes the sequel's Colony premise emotionally rich. A colony is an attempt to scale up the feeling of a base. One room becomes many rooms. One survivor becomes a community. One tool chain becomes infrastructure. But the emotional question remains the same. Can this place hold us? Subnautica 2 begins before that question is answered. That unfinished answer is the source of its melancholy. The game feels beautiful when it lets the answer seem possible. A powered base, a working vehicle, a successful scan, a safe return, a resource route, a shared dive, a new upgrade. These moments suggest that humans might learn this ocean. The game feels terrifying when it reminds us that learning is not ownership. A Leviathan still patrols, the AI still pushes, the story still hides, the water still surrounds every wall. Hope exists, but it has to keep checking its oxygen. This is why Subnautica 2 can be calming enough for a long night even when the subject is fear. Its terror has rhythm instead of sheer volume. It rises through distance, uncertainty, sound and need. It falls through return, crafting, base light and understanding. Then it rises again. That rhythm is close to breathing. The game scares through breath and then comforts through breath restored. It is almost too perfect that oxygen is the central mechanic. The whole experience inhales and exhales. The phrase terrifying and beautiful works because the two feelings are not rivals here. Beauty invites attention. Terror asks whether attention was safe. Beauty makes the water worth entering. Terror makes leaving it meaningful. Beauty gives the creature majesty. Terror gives the creature teeth. Beauty makes the base window peaceful. Terror makes the glass matter. In Subnautica 2, the two feelings trade places constantly, and the best moments happen when they are impossible to separate. The world can also feel beautiful because it is not fully explained. Explanation is useful, but too much explanation kills wonder. A scan entry can describe a creature, but it should not drain the mystery out of seeing it move. A story chapter can reveal motive, but it should not turn the whole ocean into a solved diagram. Subnautica's lore works best when it gives enough answers to reward attention and enough silence to preserve depth. The unknown is not a failure of storytelling. It is one of the main materials. The unknown is especially powerful underwater because real oceans are still associated with mystery. Even on Earth, the deep sea carries a reputation for the unseen. Strange pressure, darkness, pale animals, giant shapes, cold vents, impossible adaptations, and distances most people will never personally enter. Subnautica borrows from that real awe and moves it into alien fiction. Subnautica 2 does not have to invent the fear of the deep from nothing. It only has to give that ancient fear a new map. The alien setting frees the game from strict realism while keeping the emotional truth of diving. The creatures can be stranger than Earth animals. The ruins can be older than human history. The biology can support impossible adaptation. But the body still understands breath, darkness, distance, and being watched. That combination is why the fiction lands. The mind accepts the impossible because the body recognizes the danger. There is a particular quiet before a deep dive that the series understands better than almost anything. Checking supplies. Looking at the vehicle. Considering the route. Making sure the base has power. Deciding whether to bring one more tool. That pause is beautiful because it is full of intention. It is terrifying because intention may not be enough. Subnautica 2 can stretch that pause across the whole experience. Every plan is a little fragile in the face of the water. Plans are comforting because they create lines through chaos. Go here. Collect this. Scan that. Return before oxygen runs low. Build the module. Try the new route. But the ocean is good at bending lines. A creature interrupts. A cave branches. A resource is missing. A sound changes the mood. A beautiful object pulls the route sideways. Subnautica 2 feels alive when plans survive contact with the world only partly. The best stories often come from the part of the plan that broke. The broken plan is also where personal memory forms. Anyone can describe the official objective. The remembered story is different. The time the tadpole barely made it back. the time a hammerhead would not leave the route alone, the time a cave turned around in the mind, the time a friend vanished into murky water, the time a base window framed a creature perfectly, the time a scan was completed with no air to spare. Subnautica gives official goals, but the ocean writes little private instants around them. That private quality is why Subnautica 2 cannot be understood only through feature lists. Features are real, but they are not the feeling. 4-person co-op is a feature. The feeling is hearing another voice go quiet as the water darkens. Biomods are a feature. The feeling is changing the body because the planet forced the issue. Base building is a feature. The feeling is looking through glass at a world that would drown you if the power failed. Early access updates are features. The feeling is an ocean still being born. The more I think about it, the more Subnautica 2 seems to work through thresholds. The hatch is a threshold between air and water. The vehicle is a threshold between body and machine. The base window is a threshold between home and wilderness. The surface is a threshold between breath and descent. The scanner is a threshold between ignorance and knowledge. The biomod is a threshold between human biology and alien adaptation. The whole game is made of crossings, and every crossing carries both promise and risk. Thresholds are calming because they organise experience. Inside, outside, shallow, deep, known, unknown, safe, unsafe, human, alien, but Subnautica keeps blurring them. The outside can become familiar, the inside can feel fragile. Shallows can contain danger, deep regions can contain beauty. Alien biology can become part of the body. Human systems can feel less trustworthy than animal instinct. The beauty is in the crossing. The terror is in realizing the categories were never as firm as they seemed. This is also why the game can be slow and still intense. It does not need constant action, because crossing a threshold is already dramatic. Leaving the base can be enough. Entering a cave can be enough. Going below a comfortable depth can be enough. Approaching a creature for a scan can be enough. The body knows these moments matter before anything attacks. Slow intensity is the series' natural home. The slow pace makes room for dread, but it also makes room for tenderness. Watching small life move around a base, returning to a familiar route, building something unnecessary because it looks nice. Helping someone in co-op. Naming a vehicle in your head even if the game does not ask. Remembering where a certain creature tends to patrol. These quiet attachments are why the fear does not become empty. You care about the world because you have spent time inside it, not because the plot has ordered you to care. Subnautica 2's beauty is therefore partly patience. It lets the world accumulate meaning. A region becomes meaningful because you crossed it several times. A creature becomes meaningful because it scared you, helped you unlock something, or simply kept appearing near a route. A base becomes meaningful because it was built piece by piece. A vehicle becomes meaningful because it carried you through bad decisions and back again. The ocean does not deliver all its emotion at once. It deposits it like sediment. The terrifying part of patience is waiting. Waiting for a scanner to finish. Waiting for a creature to turn away. Waiting for oxygen to run low while trying to find the exit. Waiting for a vehicle to repair. Waiting in darkness because moving would draw attention. Waiting for a friend to return. Subnautica horror often happens while the hands want to rush and the situation demands stillness. The water makes panic slower, and that slowness is unbearable in the best way. The most beautiful fear in Subnautica might be the moment when panic becomes concentration. The sound is wrong, air is low, the route is unclear, the instinct is to flail. Then the mind finds one task. Follow the wall, turn toward the light, use the tool, reach the vehicle, swim up. That narrowing of attention feels like survival becoming pure. Subnautica 2 can create that state again, because its systems are built around the body under pressure. There is no need to oversell the game as perfect. Early access means rough edges. Some creature balance has already needed work. Some performance and crash issues have been patched. Some systems are still planned for expansion. Saying that honestly actually helps the atmosphere, because the ocean does not need pretending. The interesting thing is that even with rough edges, the core feeling is strong enough to discuss. The underwater fear, the beauty of alien ecology, the vulnerability first design, the comfort of bases, and the tension of a colony trying to happen under an uncaring sea. Perfection would almost be suspicious for this kind of ocean. The series has always had a bit of friction, odd physics, strange creature behaviour, vehicles doing unexpected things, bases built in ridiculous places, a mix of terror and jank. Too much roughness breaks immersion, of course. But a little strangeness can become part of the memory. The trick is keeping the rough edges from replacing the intended fear. When a hammerhead behaves believably, it is scary. When it behaves absurdly, it becomes a story of a different kind. The fact that Unknown Worlds is responding through hotfixes and community letters matters, because Subnautica has always had a strong relationship with open development. The first game's early access history helped shape its final identity. Subnautica 2 is following that path in a louder, more complicated era, with more expectations and more eyes on every decision. That pressure exists outside the fiction, but it echoes the fiction nicely. A new world being built in public, full of hope, complaints, revisions, and dangerous depths. That public growth can make the ocean feel less mysterious if watched too closely through patch notes. For a sleepy lore-style journey, it is better to let the facts sit quietly underneath the mood. May 14th, 2026, Early Access. New planet, Cicada, co-op up to 4. Biomods, tadpole, bases, blight, creature tuning. Future biomes, creatures, tools, vehicles and story. Those facts are the bones. The feeling is the water around them. The water around them is what matters most. It is blue-black space. It is the comfort of a hatch. It is the little fear before leaving the base. It is the strange pride of building something that survives a little longer. It is the awful beauty of a huge creature moving with no hurry. It is the embarrassment of needing air. It is the thrill of scanning life that does not care about being understood. It is the tiny human wish to make a home in a place that keeps saying, very softly, maybe. Maybe is the perfect word for Subnautica 2. Maybe the route is safe. Maybe that sound is distant. Maybe the base will hold. Maybe the creature will ignore the light. Maybe the AI is right. Maybe Altera's promise is not a trap. Maybe this planet can become home. Maybe the next depth is worth it. Maybe the beautiful thing ahead is harmless. Maybe it is not. The entire experience hangs in that uncertainty, and uncertainty is one of the oldest forms of wonder. Wonder without risk can become decoration. Risk without wonder can become punishment. Subnautica 2 feels terrifying and beautiful because it refuses to separate them. The world is worth seeing because it is dangerous, and dangerous because it is worth seeing. A dull ocean would be easier to survive. A safe ocean would be easier to admire. This ocean asks for both admiration and caution, which is why the body remembers it. The more the sequel grows, the more important restraint will be. More creatures should not simply mean more attacks. More biomes should not simply mean more colour. More tools should not simply mean less vulnerability. The series is strongest when every addition deepens the basic question: how far can a small, breathing body go into a world that was not made for it? If the additions keep that question alive, Subnautica 2 can become larger and emotionally deeper at once. Depth in the emotional sense is different from map depth. A very deep trench can still feel shallow if nothing meaningful happens there. A small cave can feel deep if it changes how the world is understood. The best Subnautica spaces have both physical and emotional depth. They contain danger, beauty, function, memory, and a reason to return. Subnautica 2's current ocean already gestures toward that design, and future expansions will decide how far those gestures reach. The sleepiness of this topic comes from the water's rhythm, not from boredom. It is possible to talk about fear gently, because the game itself often scares gently. It does not always scream, it waits. It lets bubbles rise, it lets light scatter, it lets a bass hum. It lets a creature call from far away. The mind can drift through those images without needing to tense every second. A calm telling does not erase the horror. It lets the horror become distant thunder. That distance is important for calm. Fear can be held at the edge of the lantern. The Leviathan stays out there. The cave mouth waits, but it does not have to be entered too quickly. The oxygen warning is remembered, not sounding right now. The base is powered. The vehicle is docked. The water outside moves in long, slow sheets. This is how Subnautica 2 can become soothing. The danger remains, but it has drifted far enough away to become a story. The story underneath all of this may be about humility. Humans arrive with ships, missions, tools, corporate plans, and modified bodies. The ocean answers with depth. It does not need to win an argument. It simply contains more than anyone can carry. Every beautiful view is a reminder that the world is larger than the plan. Every frightening sound is a reminder that the plan has to listen. Humility is not despair. It is the beginning of real attention. Subnautica 2 feels beautiful when it makes attention feel rewarded. Look closely, and a route appears. Listen carefully, and a creature's mood becomes clearer. Prepare well, and a deeper place becomes possible. Build thoughtfully, and a base becomes peace. Adapt carefully, and the body lasts longer. The ocean does not become kind, but it becomes legible in pieces. That partial legibility is enough to keep going. The terror returns because legibility is never complete. There is always another depth, another sound, another cave, another unfinished story piece, another creature whose limits are not fully known. Even a familiar area can become strange under different light, or after a different objective pulls attention away. The ocean never becomes a solved room. It becomes a relationship. And relationships with living places are never finished. That is the real reason Subnautica 2 can feel so beautiful after being so frightening. Beauty is not the absence of danger. Beauty is what remains worth approaching even after danger has been understood. If a place still calls after it has scared you, it has done something rare. The ocean says, "Come closer." The memory says, "Be careful." The body enters anyway, with a little more knowledge, a little more respect, and a little less arrogance than before. The title of the series still carries the whole feeling. Subnautica means beneath the sea. It does not need a complicated promise. It tells the body where it is going. Under. Subnautica 2 extends that promise into a new place, and the subtitle free number has its own quiet confidence. It is returning to an ocean and asking whether the same kind of fear can bloom in different water. So far, the answer is yes, because the fear was never only about one planet. It was about breadth, depth, sound, curiosity, and the beauty of being small. And now the dive can slow down. The base lights can stay on. The tadpole can rest in its dock with a few scratches on the hull and enough power for tomorrow. Outside the glass, the alien sea can keep moving without needing to be solved. Small creatures can pass through the blue. Larger shapes can remain where distance softens them. The AI can go quiet for a while. The mission can wait. For now, there is no need to swim deeper. No need to scan the shadow at the edge of the reef. No need to follow the cave until the air runs thin. Subnautica 2 feels terrifying because the ocean is bigger than the body, and beautiful because the body keeps returning anyway. So let the water settle. Let the strange planet breathe in darkness. Let the hatch stay sealed, the room stay warm, and the deep remain deep until morning.